So, I watched a lot of movies last month. We began 2021, and I decided I was going to watch at least one movie every single day. That being said, let's get straight into this. At number 33, we have Fred Claus, which I did give a 2 out of 5 on. I thought that this movie was pretty weak. It's not very memorable to me at all. Literally, all I remember is that Vince Vaughn is in it. To me, it's a very low-tier Christmas movie. Then I watched, at number 32, Fear and Desire, which I gave a 2.5 out of 5. This comes from acclaimed director Stanley Kubrick, and it's his first movie, and it is not very good. You can see little bits and pieces of Kubrick in there, but that doesn't really help that the plot, the script, and the characters are all just not very great. He even disowned the film, so if that doesn't tell you, I don't know who will. Next up, I watched Taboo, which I gave a 2.5 out of 5. Big film fans will probably hate this, but I do not find F.W. Murnau's films very great for me. I can acknowledge that this movie is very well made, but it didn't really keep my attention at all. And don't worry, I've got 3 more Murnau films on this list to make people mad with my placements. At number 30, we have The Great Gatsby, which I gave a 3 out of 5. This movie is one of the most mediocre movies I've ever seen. I thought that Leo and Toby did good, but they were kind of the only characters I cared about, and the script is not that great, but I did like how colorful it was, and I didn't mind some of the plot points of the movie, but overall it kind of felt like it dragged forever, and there were just party scenes, just constant random party scenes over and over again, which I did read the book, and I still think that it was just constant. Next up, I watched Batman Forever, which I gave a 3 out of 5 on. This was one of the only Batman movies I hadn't seen before. I think it was the only Batman movie, and I thought this one was very entertaining. Aside from having extremely weird lines of dialogue, like even weird for the Riddler, I had a lot of fun with Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Do I want him to come back and play any more superhero, supervillain characters? Not really. I think Val Kilmer is overall a mediocre Batman, and I'll probably do a Batman actor ranking eventually, having seen all of the Batman movies by now, and maybe even a Batman ranking as well of all the movies. Then I watched Isle of Dogs, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 on. At the time of making this video, I have only seen 2 Wes Anderson films, that being this and Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think that the latter is extremely better. I thought that this film had a cool plot, and I did enjoy some of it, but I didn't find really any of the characters particularly great. And the animation, the stop-motion animation, it was pretty cool, I guess. But some of the jokes, well, funny, some other ones did not land for me, and it's a comedy, so yeah, I kind of judge it a little more harshly. Next up, I watched Nosferatu, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 on. From here, I think that every movie left is legitimately a good movie, or I really liked it. Nosferatu is probably at the top of Murnau's movies, technically, and I found it interesting, to say the least. I don't really have any big problems with it. I guess I didn't connect with it, or I just didn't find it as interesting as I was hoping I would. And then we watched The Last Laugh, which I gave a 4 out of 5 on. This was another Murnau movie, and I felt the movie was quite depressing, and I do think that Murnau did a great job conveying emotion in it. The ending was super weird, putting in a single title card that apparently Murnau, that title card places where he wanted the movie to end, and then the rest of the movie from there is just the studio meddling with it. And it's yet another example of bad studio meddling that can really mess up a movie, because that ending was not very great. At number 25, we have Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, the final Murnau film on this list, and easily my favorite. I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well, though. This is my favorite of Murnau's films, like I said. It kept me pretty interested throughout. I found the characters and the plot to be pretty intriguing, and you can definitely feel Murnau's directing in it. So I thought that it was just a very intriguing movie, and I enjoyed my time watching it. Next up, I watched The General, I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well. It's yet another silent movie on this list. I watched a lot of silent movies for my film class this month. The General is a Buster Keaton comedy, and I think that Keaton is a pretty funny guy. I feel that Charlie Chaplin is vastly better and is probably one of my favorite directors of all time. Nonetheless, one of the best actors of that time and probably one of the best directors of that time. Some of the jokes did fall kind of flat, but that can be expected from a comedy from 1927. But yeah, there were some jokes that I still found pretty funny, and I think that I'm going to watch more of Buster Keaton's movies. At number 23, we have The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I did give a 4 out of 5 as well. I gave a lot of 4 out of 5s. Do not worry, we're about to get into some more popular modern movies, but this movie is pretty awesome, actually. The set pieces in this movie are probably the standout, but the plot and score are also worth mentioning, and there are definitely some memorable scenes from this movie, and I had a fun time with it. At number 22, we have Green Book, which I did give a 4 out of 5 on. This was a Best Picture winner from 2018. This movie is supremely overhated. Like I said, it won Best Picture, which is kind of ridiculous, as there were much better films for that year that could have won. It was very clear Oscar bait, though. That being said, the performances really bring this movie up. I thought Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali especially are both fantastic in their roles, and their friendship was very well developed. I'm excited to watch some more of Mahershala Ali's movies before he plays Blade for the Marvel movies, but yeah. At number 21, we have Godzilla, the 2014 version. It was a pretty interesting movie. It was kind of annoying that it took forever to actually see Godzilla, but it did help develop the characters. I thought that the action scenes were pretty awesome when Godzilla was actually introduced, and again, the characters, I didn't really mind them. Then, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This is the second Harry Potter film I watched, obviously. I watched the first one in 2020, and I think they've gotten better so far. I've watched this one, and the third one, and obviously the first one. And this month I decided to watch the second and the third movie, and I really enjoyed this one. I think that Harry, Ron, Hermione are great characters in this movie. Harry rising up into some of my favorite characters lists, and I really enjoyed watching them and them together. All the actors work really well together. The movie is pretty long, and it's way too long. It's apparently the longest movie in the franchise, which I think that Deathly Hallows probably should have been one movie, and they just made that 3-hour-long movie. Number 19, we have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I did give a 4 out of 5. It's probably one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen. Obviously, I enjoyed it, but a lot of people give it like 100%, 5 out of 5. This was kind of Harry Potter's transfer to becoming like kids' movies to more darker movies, and I really enjoyed this movie and had a lot of fun with the plot, and of course the characters just keep getting better each movie. At number 18, Battleship Potemkin, which I gave a 4 out of 5. This movie was really great. It's one of the best silent movies I watched this month, and I thought the plot and sort of the message to the movie was extremely interesting. I don't have much to say about this movie, but it is just pretty great. Then the last movie I watched this month was The Farewell, which I did give a 4 out of 5 on. I thought this movie was really great. It's definitely in my top 10 of 2019 among 1917, Little Women, Ford vs. Ferrari, Avengers Endgame, etc. I thought Awkwafina and Zhao Shuzhen were fantastic in their roles. Definitely did emotional moments very well, and I'm excited to see more of Awkwafina's work. At number 16, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which I did give a 4 out of 5 on. This movie is very underrated. Don't get me wrong, everybody has seen this movie, but a lot of people really don't like it, which I guess it kind of makes sense, but I still had a fun time with it and thought this movie was supremely entertaining. And on a side note, Short Round was hilarious in this movie. Then next up is Napoleon Dynamite, which I did give a 4.5 out of 5 on, which if you don't like this movie, I completely understand. The comedy is very subjective, as is all comedy, but This is a pretty weird movie. To me, this movie was just so funny, though, and extremely quotable, and I had such a fun time with it. Then, next up, we have Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 4.5 out of 5. This was my first entry into the Planet of the Apes movies. I'll probably watch them and maybe rank them at the end. And I really loved it. I think that Caesar is an awesome character, and all of the characters in this movie were actually pretty good. And Caesar's probably creeping up my list of one of my favorite protagonists. What else is there to say? Then at number 13, we have Forrest Gump, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 on. I finally watched this movie, and it was very good. Tom Hanks is probably in my top 3 actors of all time, and I found this movie to have great moments, a great plot, and phenomenal characters. Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan are both very good characters, and it was fun to watch them. Then next up we have City Lights, which I believe is my number 1 silent movie of this month, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 on. It's the last silent movie on my list, and I loved it. I actually watched this movie twice this month, within the span of a week, and it is one of my favorite movies of this decade, and probably one of my favorite silent movies. It is my favorite silent movie of all time. I'll probably do a top 10 Charlie Chaplin movies at some point, but spoiler alert, this will be number 1. I have seen Modern Times, and this is number 1. At number 11, we have Spirited Away, which some argue is the greatest animated movie of all time. It was my first anime movie, and I'd go as far to say it's one of the greatest animated movies of all time. It's probably in my top 10 of all time in terms of animation, and I'm definitely excited to go and watch some more Hayao Miyazaki films. I probably butchered that name, but you know who I'm talking about. I'll put it up on screen. And then number 10, we have Mean Girls, 4.5 out of 5. This movie was surprisingly very entertaining. I wasn't super excited, but it's on so many lists saying that everybody should watch it, and it does make sense. The movie is quite funny and has some very memorable and funny moments. Next up, we have Lord of the Rings 2, which, yes, I watched a lot of movies for the first time this month, and this was my first time watching The Two Towers. I saw Fellowship last year, and they're both awesome. This movie feels really under-talked about compared to Fellowship and Return of the King. Have not seen Return of the King yet, and I'll probably watch it in February. But this movie is just as good as Fellowship in my opinion, and I think that they both should be talked about a lot because they're both phenomenal movies. At number 8, we have Rear Window, which is a 5 out of 5. This is my second Alfred Hitchcock movie after Psycho, and I really loved it. I think James Stewart is probably one of the greatest actors of all time, and probably the best actor of that certain time period. And Alfred Hitchcock is definitely one of my favorite directors of all time and is in my top 10. The intrigue in this movie is very high, and I love the mystery, and I really enjoyed the plot, the script, and the performances, and they all just work together really well. At number 7, I rewatched Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I rewatched this movie for the first time this month, and it was actually better than the original time I watched it. This movie it's just so fun, and it rose up to become part of my top 50 of all time. I might do that list eventually, I have no idea. Ferris Bueller might be one of my favorite movie characters, and yeah, it was just a fun movie that I'll probably end up rewatching a lot. At number 6, we have Barry Lyndon. This is my 4th Stanley Kubrick movie after 2001, Doctor Strangelove, and Fear and Desire. I really love this movie. I haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey in probably 4 or 5 years, so it does need a rewatch. But as of now, without having rewatched 2001 yet, Barry Lyndon is probably my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie, and it's probably in my top 30 of all time, maybe my top 20, I don't know. The movie has great cinematography, a great script, a great score, and obviously great characters. The movie is pretty underrated. I think everybody who's seen it likes it, but not a lot of people have seen it, and not a lot of people talk about it compared to others like 2001, The Shining, Clockwork Orange, etc. At number 5, I have Avengers: Infinity War. I know, I put a Marvel movie above a Stanley Kubrick movie, but I just had more of a fun time watching this. It is in my top 15 of all time, which tells you how great of a month this was because I still have 4 movies above it. I love all the characters in this movie, and I have been watching these movies since I was a little kid, and I've seen them all come together in this, and it was just incredible. I also think that Thanos is probably one of my favorite movie villains, or at least up there somewhere. But yeah, it's just such a fun movie. At number 4, Aliens. I actually like this movie more than Alien. This is my first time watching Aliens. It's also my first James Cameron movie, and it was just incredible. I think Ripley is probably one of the greatest protagonists in movies, and it becoming less of a horror movie and more of an action movie was just very great for me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great choice. This movie is awesome. And yeah, it's probably in my top 10 of all time. I think it's maybe number 10. At number 3, we have Saving Private Ryan. This movie, to me, is the greatest war movie of all time. I think Steven Spielberg did a fantastic job with this movie, and all the characters that are in this are just fantastic. And there are death scenes in it, which I won't spoil, but they are sad, and Steven Spielberg does a great job. I watched this towards the end of the month, and it kind of influenced my idea of putting Tom Hanks as one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he did a great job, just like he does in every other movie he's in, I feel. And the special effects, the visual effects, the characters, and the storyline was just fantastic, and I love this movie. At number 2, we have Gladiator, which, obviously, I gave a 5 out of 5. This movie was extremely surprising to me. I knew that I'd really like it, because I like a lot of movies like this, but I didn't know that I'd love it this much. It's currently my favorite Ridley Scott film, with Alien as a second and Blade Runner as a third. Blade Runner desperately needs a rewatch, but this movie is probably number 5 on my favorite movies of all time, which may be surprising, but I just find this movie to be so entertaining and so incredible. Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix are both fantastic in this. Joaquin Phoenix probably plays one of the best movie villains that I've seen so far, at least in the top 20, and Russell Crowe was just fantastic and gave a great performance. At number 1 is a rewatch. I rewatched my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future, for the 3rd or 4th time. It's my favorite movie of all time. It's just a great movie, and I could go on about it forever, so I'm just going to say now, the plot to this movie is phenomenal. Marty McFly and Doc Brown are some of my favorite movie characters. I have such a good time with this movie every single time I watch it, and that's why it's my favorite movie of all time. So that was all 33 movies that I watched this month. I probably will not watch that many any other month this year, or maybe any other month in general. But I decided to watch at least one movie every single day for the first month of 2020. Be sure to like and subscribe this video, and I have a question for you guys. What movies did you watch this month? Comment them down below. See you guys.